It's a very warm welcome, everybody. I will continue to let people in because they're coming thick and fast now. It's great to see. So I'm going to start with a quick story. It's a super quick story to set up, and then I'm going to hand over to Lucy and to Sue. And the story is this. It comes from this morning. I had a lovely coaching session with a chief commercial officer, and she leads really the marketing function, but she has a big steer on sales as well. And she said, you know what? I am so frustrated, and I'm frustrated mainly because my business, especially my peers at leadership team level, are not focusing on the next. They are only ever focusing on the now. And as a chief commercial officer, I'm being told, think about the next quarter, think about the next month, and stop thinking about dreamy things like 2025. So the reason I share that story is it couldn't be more relevant to our topic today and to our wonderful guests from the Growth Factor. And it is this challenge. How do you as a leader, how do you lead the now and inspire and manage the next? How do you future-proof your business? And that is the key question that we're going to talk about and share today. We have wonderful guests with Sue and Lucy. And just a brief introduction from me, and then I'm handing over to Sue first, I think. I know Sue and Lucy as practitioners, so as people who have led insight, marketing, trend management in a major food business. And so in that sense, they bring so much natural experience, not just amazing ideas around how do you manage the future in terms of trend management. So over to you, Sue.
Gosh, what an introduction. I feel I've got to uphold that today. So hopefully Lucy and I will. Just a quick bit on the growth factors. We're an agency that really does focus on driving competitive advantage. And part of driving that competitive advantage is, of course, finding a strategy that's going to be totally future-proofed for your business. And I guess what we'd like to say today is we don't have a crystal ball. If we did, none of us would be here. We all would have won the lottery probably and be on our sailing boats and yachts in far away, far-flung places. But what we do have, I hope, is a structure and a framework that can help you get to a place where you have more competitive advantage than your competitors. You will have a greater growth mindset. It's about building your growth mindset. And you'll have a really effective plan to ensure that you can manage the day-to-day along with driving into the future. And we're going to start off with thinking about a framework which is based around the SMARTer framework, which is probably something everyone knows about. But we've taken a few little tweaks to it to make it fit the topic today. Why SMART? Well, because it gives us a really good framework. And the first part of it, the SMART, is all about thinking about those future trends and how you can get them to be specific, measurable, actionable, and relevant to you, and timely as well. Really important that they are timely. And the E, we've added E and R on the end. The E is about how you can have a strategy that is much more effective than your competitors. And that's all about bringing the outside in. And finally, the R, which is all about having a future-facing strategy that's really going to be resilient and stand the test of time. And that's all about driving your collaborative building of your future-facing strategy. But before we actually get onto that, we're going to replay the poll that we put out on LinkedIn just to understand where your heads are at in terms of thinking about future-facing strategy at the moment. And all we'd like you to do is just put into chat a number. Is going to be 1, 2, or 3, and it's the answer to this question, which is what prevents your business being more future focused? So if it's number 1, i.e. it's just that you're far too busy with the day-to-day, just put 1 in the chat. If it's 2, it's hard to identify the right trends that we should go for as a business. Or 3, it's all about just having a lack of an action plan. So just put in the chat if you could, 1, 2, or 3, and we'll just get a feel for where you are. What's coming up, Mark?
A lot of
A lot
ones,
of
an
ones.
awful lot of ones.
Yeah. Which I think is what came through on the LinkedIn poll, wasn't it? Those that responded, it was all about the too busy in the day to day, which is exactly your story from tomorrow. So yeah, I think a lot of things have impacted us in terms of putting our heads down and ensuring that we're keeping on that day to day focus. But I think we are now in a time where we have to start taking our heads out of that. If we as businesses and we as leaders are going to drive forward, we've got to start thinking about the future, because if we don't, somebody else will be, and we'll be losing whatever competitive advantage we have. So we won't be maintaining it, and we certainly won't be driving forward with more of a competitive advantage. So let's just start then with the S of smarter, and that's all about being specific. So when we're thinking about trends, we don't just think of trends as one huge mass. We think there are 3 different levels of trends, and hopefully you can see these here. I'll just chat through them. So that first level is all about, you see that, your contextual trends. And these trends really are those trends that are right up at a global level. They are impacting consumer behavior, shopper behavior, every moment of the day. And they're often the trends that are placed upon people. So these will be trends, you've probably heard of PESTLE, so the political, economic, and social, technology, legislative, environmental trends. So these are often ones that become very much in regulative impact onto people. So those are the ones that hang around all the time in the background. The next ones are the really high impact trends. And when you're talking about trends, often people will say those big macro trends like health and sustainability are the ones that they really focus in on. These are the ones that you really absolutely must be acting on as a business. They are the ones that are going to be of real strong commercial importance to you, or opportunity, or actually commercial risk as well. So if you don't act on these, you can bet your bottom dollar your competitors absolutely are. Now, the one thing to say about these is, of course, you have things like health. It's a massive, massive trend. Has been around for a long time, always will be around in the future. But the trends around health itself can break down into many, many sub-trends and micro trends that sit underneath that. So if you look at all the trends out there, and you'll find trends from people like the Food People, Mintel, Euromonitor, Future Foundation, Future Laboratory, there are many, many, many out there. And they will have more trends at a sub-trend level and even micro-trend level. So for instance, the Food People will break health down into 3 different macro sub-trends under that. So accessible health, clean and whole, love your lifestyle. But even under that, there's 17 micro trends that sit under that. So wading through that amount of trends is going to be really, really important for you, deciding which ones are the most important for you, the most important ones for your business, for your consumers is really important. And so that brings us down into those exploratory trends. So those trends that you should consider acting on. So when we're saying there's all of these trends out there, by no stretch of the imagination should you be acting on every single one of them. You need to pick the ones that absolutely are going to give you a real competitive advantage over your competitors, because they fit really, really well with your business, what your shoppers and what your consumers are doing, and what your business is capable of achieving. So all trends are not equal. There are 3 levels of trends: contextual, high impact, and exploratory. So have a think about those level of trends and how you can identify those to take you into a place which gives you a much more future-facing and effective strategy. So that's the S for specific. I'm going to pass to Lucy now to talk about the M and the A.
Thanks, Sue. So next, we need to understand how viable the trends are for your business. And this is where we do have to be really clear on how measurable and actionable the trend is, and very much in the context of your business itself. So you need to think about this as building a business case. Some of the trends will be absolutely no-brainers. They will for you to go with. They'll be low risk with a really high return, and you should just get on with these and as a business. But others will be a higher risk and may or may not deliver you such a high return. So you really need to model these and decide on what level of risk versus the reward your business is willing to take, or maybe even needs to take, to make sure it maintains its competitive advantage. But to do this, to make sure that you are being objective as you look at these measures, you really need to think about what your proof points are and what evidence you need to support your estimated size of prize for each trend. And we need to be thinking about what is a credible measure and what is the objective proof point in there. Do you have reliable sources? Are you being rounded in your view? And the skill really is being able to link these multiple sources of evidence to give that really objective and credible view in there. You also need to be thinking about, actually, will these changing trends actually negatively impact your business or your brand as well? And how you might need to mitigate that as part of your strategy. And also the impact that it might have on your customers as well as part of that. So understanding the value of a trend to your business and brand really helps you to prioritize the action plan into shorter and longer term strategies so that you can break it down into bite-sized chunks for your business, because sometimes it can be really overwhelming. You're looking at your future strategy and it's just about how you're ever going to get there. So being able to put it into a framework that breaks it down into smaller chunks makes it much more achievable for the business as a whole, and really make sure you can stay ahead in terms of delivering that competitive advantage. It also allows you as a business to be thinking about what investment you might need to make. And the investment might be in terms of equipment and or systems. It might be about your team structure or the resource that you have within your business. And there might be areas of specific expertise that you also need. Or it may even be acquisition and merger to realise the growth opportunities of those trends. So as you assess the viability of each trend, you need to be considering, what value will this trend be bringing to my business or my brand, my customer and the shopper? And what are we willing to invest so that we can act on it and maintain our competitive advantage within that? So I think we're now going to bring in Sue, we're going to bring in Rosie here, hopefully.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up an example, actually. Mark's just said, can we think of an example about how we've gone forward in the past with trends and having sort of measured them and made them actually actionable. And actually, Rosie, you will remember this quite well. When we in our business in Kerry Foods, when we were at Kerry Foods, we were a big meals provider out to our customers, and there was this thing happening in the world called free from, and it was a trend and starting to be quite a big trend out there in the marketplace. And there had been out in the meals arena a brand called Kirsty's, which had been out for quite a while, which was very high, quite highly processed brand. It was more, I think it was almost not UHG, but it's ultra high processed, yeah. And I can't remember the terminology now.
Pasteurized.
That's it, pasteurized. But we as a food business, and a food business that was very much into health, felt that, you know, this free from thing had something going for it. So we had to look really deep at the trends and understand how that would impact into our business. And we ended up partnering, I think, with Tesco to begin with, to actually bring our capability up to such a level that we could have a separate area of the factory. We've done all the trials around it. We've measured the trend. We had all the insight to ensure that what we were getting ourselves into would actually be a positive benefit for the business. Don't know whether you just want to put you on the spot a bit there, I think, but just give a little flavour for that free from trend and actually what we did there.
Yeah, I mean, it's highly it was technically complex. It was almost having nuts in your factory. Was running free from lines, wasn't it? And do you remember, it was just like, okay, free from, and explaining to people in the factory, well, there's 14 different allergens and things you've got to be aware of. And it was just the unknown, wasn't it, to start with? And it, you know, it was, as Lucy said, considerable investment, but it's when you see the trend and they see the growth and you've got all your data behind how many people are suffering from allergies, I think that's when you're getting your scale, isn't it, of the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look at free from now and what's happened out there, certainly in the
Yeah.
food industry, you know, it's got to a place now where even in Sainsbury's, they've created whole aisles, which is really, I think, sort of quite future facing, having put the aisles of and the different temperature states together all in one place. So you've got ambient, you've got chilled, and you've got frozen all in one free from aisle, because they see it as being so important to serving that consumer and shopper need, and the ease of that, and putting it all in one place. So I think it was certainly something that was right to get into.
Yeah.
Was it too soon? Don't know. We'll talk about that later. But certainly from a Kerry perspective, we were always trying to jump on those trends right at the right time. At the right time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one example there of, you know, a trend out there in the marketplace, and the business really having to make some huge investments and decisions around, have we measured it right? Is the opportunity really there? And can we properly action it in the right way for us to win as a business? So we've covered off specific, measurable and actionable, and I'm going to still chat with Rosie around trends being relevant. And Rosie, if you could just give us a flavour of how you have in the past and your experience of ensuring that the business that you've been working has had trends that are really relevant to them.
Yeah, sure. So I joined a business and it had three functions, or three separate businesses within it, and it was food, drink and household, and that covered a lot of different own label, a lot of different product types and brands. And I was brought in as the first sort of innovation person they'd had, really to control all of that. And I think working with Sue, and we just need to get a trends and insights framework in this business. And yeah, you know, when I pitched it first to the CEO, it was like, our businesses are so different, Rosie. How can we possibly have one framework for a total business? And well, we did. We worked together. We brought people from across all of those three businesses with Sue, and we created a framework we kept it simple, didn't we, Sue? We kept, because it was the first time they'd had it. We had 5 macro trends and then about 14 mini trends underneath each of those 5 macros. So it's really easy to follow, embedding the business. And what it did was, when we first introduced it to the business, we did the whole framework for them. And then day 2 was, okay, not everything is going to be relevant for yours. Let's have a brainstorm that'll lead into your business strategy building of which are the key trends that you need to follow. Do we need to find more data on? Do we need more resource? That kind of thing. And what they all did from that, just that one session, was really distilled down what were their focus and relevant trends they were going to keep looking at. And we managed to share with the business, okay, this is a set framework, but it's quite flexible for you. And we will keep coming back as this multi-group of revisiting these trends and seeing what's happening, what's emerging, what's in growth, what's new, and we've got absolutely no resource on that. We need to follow it more and looking into it. And for a business that adopted this for the first time, what they actually got off of it was the strategic focus, but they also, it was a sharing of data. It was everyone is now talking a common language up to the board, across their business, different businesses, and to all their different customers. Okay, here's this business, and they're all singing this common language, and it's actually a language that the customers recognized as well. So it brought us a lot more gravitas. And actually it did sort of bring this whole desperate businesses together, as one lovely side effect of it was. And, you know, once it had been in play for 6 months, it was generating 3-year pipelines with what was probably less populated in terms of number of concepts and ideas. But what they ended up doing was launching bigger, bolder concepts that actually stayed in the market longer. And then they started to feed into people like logistics and technical of, right, okay, we're really concentrating our resources here, but we are flexible to adapt to the different nuances that happen in some of the big macro trends. And it was seen really as a real success. And once you've got it in place, we were just tickling it every 6 months or so, and just challenging each other. And even if you didn't work in drinks, you could challenge household to go, hang on a minute, have you thought about that? And because you had your common language there, you could challenge. You could also, you've all probably been in businesses where the CEO comes in with a good idea for a product. Actually, no, we decided 6 months ago that we'll look at it for you, but this is our core strategy. This is said where we were going to grow, and this is where we're focusing on. If it does fit in with that strategy, great, but it gave you, in the absence of a framework, you didn't have anything to push back with. So then you did get a really populated funnel with just stuff that's stuck in there because the CEO put it in. So it was a good challenge medium, I would say, on that front as well. Yeah. So multiple benefits outside of strategy.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think we did end up with maybe 4 of those high impact trends, and then a number of exploratory trends under each one. And therefore those high impact trends, you know, a couple of the businesses will say, well, we're going to focus on those 2. Other businesses was that one and that one. And then the micro trends or the exploratory trends underneath, you could then see how they could apply those each to differently, not only to the businesses, but also the brands within that as well. So it's a lovely way of being able to see one framework being played out in different ways, because it's ultimately the trends are relevant, but they're relevant in very different ways for each part of the business, and you know, ultimately each brand within the business.
And because it was new and shiny, and it also gave permission to challenge on those old myths. We can't do that, we don't want to be in that. And it was like, actually, this is huge. If it's health or economic trend, this is huge. We can't just ignore that one. What can we do to explore that one trend and give us an opportunity in something that we thought we couldn't get into? So it just allows you to challenge the status quo when you're new into a business, really, as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. And I think one trend that I've seen is a couple of years now ago that I thought, you know, this trend is absolutely not relevant for where it's being played out in the marketplace, and that was sugar-free. A while ago, there was this real trend for sugar coming out of categories, obviously driven by, I'm going to knock my sign off there, HFSS and those big contextual trends coming out. So legislation being pushed out to the market. And Chris did something that I thought they'd never do, and that was try and take sugar out of confectionery, out of chocolate. And I remember seeing, and I took a picture of it, seeing this picture in Sainsbury's with a load of sugar-free chocolate on it. Now, I get it, totally get it if you're diabetic and it's all medical driven, but I'm not. I'm a chocoholic, and I buy chocolate because I want to treat myself. I do not want a sugar-free chocolate. Thank you very much. I want the calories. I want the taste.
You've made your decision.
Yeah, exactly. Why are you trying to get me into a trend that is just not relevant for the masses? So I think, you know, really think long and hard about whether these trends are going to be absolutely relevant for your business, for your shoppers and consumers, and for your customers. That's a real sign, because that's long gone. I can tell you that. I can't see any Cadbury sugar-free anywhere now. Thanks for that, Rosie. We're going to go back to Lucy and talk about the T of smart and timely.
Yes, timing is everything, isn't it, Sue? You sort of mentioned it in the free from example as well. You know, we had obviously exploring that in the market and when was the right time to go into it. And, you know, timing is everything. We know that. And we know that there are long-term trends and there are short-term fads as well. And I think something that we feel quite passionately about is utilizing a fad is actually a great thing to do if it's the right thing to do for your business and you're agile enough to be able to do that. As Mark said earlier, everybody wants your win tomorrow. So being able to capitalize on those short-term fads is a good thing to do. But I think it's also important to recognize within businesses that fads are fads. And so as they tend to enter the market very quickly, they can also, the growth of those fads can decline as quickly as they grow, and they may even exit the market as well. So for example, the sugarless chocolate, for example, being in that. And so I think it's great to embrace fads, but I think you also need to make sure that your commercial and your sales strategy also reflects what a fad might do over time as well. And so it's really important that that is reflected. And I think there's a few great examples in the market. We've mentioned a couple, but there's also something like Prime drinks is a great example. And overnight must-have sensation that went into the market. But realistically, did they expect that growth to continue? Probably not. I don't think they resourced their business up to continue that growth forever. I think they were just wanting to capitalize on that short-term opportunity and the knowledge that the growth would significantly slow. And another thing that probably most of us have got lurking in the back of our cupboards somewhere is something like the spiralizer. It was a sensation, you know, everybody needed a spiralizer when we all wanted sort of more fun ways to eat vegetables and reduce, have a lower carb diet. And so they were really big, and you don't hear too much of them anymore. In fact, I did hear it about a month ago, somebody talking about a spiralizer, but that's the first time in years. So those are great examples of fads, but great opportunities at the time to ride the wave on at the time. But if you do go after fads, obviously that needs to be balanced with longer term, more stable trends that are coming into the market. And as those longer term trends suggest from the name, they take time to build, and it requires a change in consumer behavior as that. So it is much longer term investment in a trend. And that the time it takes can very much depend on actually what the barriers to purchase are for consumers. So for example, the cordless vacuum or the air fryer both deliver increased convenience for consumers, good or better results than the corded or other vacuums or conventional ovens. And in the case of the air fryer, it's actually a much more cost-effective way to cook. But you then take something like that has very low consumer barrier or into the market versus something like an electric vehicle, for example, which in theory it's a more cost-effective, environmentally sound solution to your petrol or your diesel cars. But there's a big consumer barrier in terms of the range anxiety of electric vehicles, and also the barrier of cost of purchase in there. So the question really is, and wouldn't we all love to know this, when and where is the right time to implement your strategy, and what do you need to support it? And we very much find that sometimes people just expect to put their products into the market and for them to go. But actually, to make sure it's the right time, you actually need to do a lot of prep work with that. You need to be asking yourself, is your shopper and your consumer ready? Are they aware of it? What are you doing to get them prepared and raise awareness of the demand for this product? Are you investing in marketing and raising that brand awareness behind there? What are the real barriers to entry, and how are you breaking those down and mitigating those risks of entry for your consumers? And are you actually targeting the right place to enter the market as well? Those are all the questions that we very much ask when we're setting up what is the right time to get to the market. Those are all the considerations that we take in, and it's how are you building that awareness so it is the right time for consumers when you bring something to market as well.
Mm.
So Mark, I think we just wanted to ask in the chat here for some examples from people on the call of where you've launched products or services into the market, but your consumers haven't quite been ready for them in there. And we just wanted to get some feedback in the chat on that from people.
So I'll write that out as well, Lucy. Just put that in the chat. What examples do you have when launching and the consumer response isn't quite ready?
Yeah.
What examples do you have?
We at Kerry Foods, again going back to Kerry Foods days, I think we were known for being often first to market with things. I think, you know, we always used to laugh in terms of the meals market, how long it took a green Thai curry to get up there as one of the, you know, one of the highest selling SKUs, considering it's been around and Thai restaurants have been around forever. But launching it into mass consumer market, you would have thought that it would, you know, get out there quick and people would take it up. But, you know, even in the meals market, you've still got lasagnas out there as number one, and chicken tikka masala and stuff like that. And red Thai, green Thai curry is still a little bit out there. So certainly from us, and I'm talking maybe that was launched 10 years ago, I guess. And all sorts of different things like that. I'm sure many people have. Yeah, wine cans, someone was talking about there. Yeah, healthy water.
Wine cans, healthy water, and wonderfully, I've been involved in these programs. I was working for Stalls of Chelsea then. I've worked with Danone with healthy water. When they launched Touch of Fruit, it was a big hit with consumers, but it was incredibly sugary. So they massively reduced the sugar content and their sales completely disappeared. Touch of Fruit, it was called, and they brought it back and relaunched it several times.
Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, absolutely, timing is everything. I think Lucy's gone to sort the dogs out, I think.
No, I haven't. I think Mark was just bored of seeing my face, so I can't get back.
Mark, let me try and do something. Keep talking.
I'm not taking offense.
I think just to add to that, I launched organic foods in one of the supermarkets back in the 90s when everyone was still working in silos in their own teams, their own product. And the positive side of having the insight, knowing that it's coming, it is fantastic. And the outcome can be transformational because it changed the way we worked as teams and departments in order to, we all had to come together to create a product area or a department that was not yet formed. So everybody had to work from like a category management point of view, or had to have everybody in the team to jointly create something to take to market. And that went down from individual to teams to departments to stores. And I think the relevance to that is that the resilience that you need in order to have the insight and the knowledge to support the fact that you want to try and demonstrate this new idea is absolutely critical. But the resilience needed and the flexibility for change, feedback, good and bad, is what can stimulate the market. But absolutely, going back to your point from the beginning, we knew it was the right thing, perhaps early. That's what change makers do. That's what entrepreneurs do. And that's what MPD does for the market. But I think the resilience to keep going when you know you've got the insights to back it up. And people change their mind and it might not work. And that's fine too. But I think keep going with that final R on resilience. It took 10 years for them to fundamentally change the way the company was set up and the way the stores traded. So we get there in the end.
Yeah, we do. And it is, we will come on to those points, Pippa, around resilience for sure. Thanks. So before we get there, just want to talk about the E after our SMART element around trends. And this is now thinking about getting to that strategy using your SMART framework from a trends perspective. But how can you go beyond the predictable to be more effective with your strategy than your competitors, to get yourself some real competitive advantage? And here we think about taking a real outside in approach. And it sort of comes back to the point Mark made right at the beginning about being stuck in the day to day. And so many of us, because we are challenged with that, we must deliver today what's right in front of us. We have our heads all buried, almost like an ostrich in the sand. And what we've got to do is take our heads up and out and look outside the box to see what's going on around us, to understand what's going to impact the thinking that we have to drive us further forward. So firstly, around the insight resources that you might use within your business. And for us, this is about really utilizing the insight that you have, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think there's lots of us in lots of businesses that have an awful lot of insight that sits there on digital files now, but in olden days it'd be sitting behind you in a filing cabinet. You take it out, maybe blow the dust off and have a relook at it at some point. So there's an awful lot of insight sitting in your business that has is a valuable resource to you. So collect that together. But not only that, add on to it what is out there outside of your normal viewpoint, I guess. So here I'm thinking about using, I don't know, just some related worlds to look at, even competitive or complementary or substitutional categories to the one that you operate in. You can learn so much by looking at a category that's perhaps used instead of your own. What's going on in that category? What's going on in the categories that absolutely supplement your category or work alongside it? So if you think of the category of cereals, what do you put on your cereal? Most people put milk on your cereal. So there's been an explosion of obviously alternative milks, so oat milks, coconut milks, etc. So how do those milks operate by putting on your cereal? Does it change the taste? What's going on there? Is there something we need to understand as a cereal manufacturer about what's going on in that complementary category to cereal? So do I need to take notice of that? Or perhaps what's going on in the bread category? A lot of people have toast instead of cereal. Some have it with, but is it going to be something that what's happening in bread, so different grains, for instance, being used, now regenerative grains being used? If people are going to be seeing much more exciting stuff happening in bread, am I going to be having more different toast? How does that apply to my category of cereal? So think and look outside the box in terms of where you're looking at. Maybe you need to get technology gurus in. Maybe you need to get subject matter gurus in. Just think a little bit outside your own world to drive a strategy that's a little bit different and maybe a little bit further forward thinking than your competitors are. And then I guess we would say this being consultants, but think about getting those outside resources in to help you. It is great to have a pair of fresh eyes. Again, we in businesses think that we understand, and we do understand our markets extremely well. We go really, really deep. But sometimes getting somebody in with some fresh eyes can really give you a different perspective on what you see every single day. It can open up new connections that you never realized were there. They can challenge you, they can provoke thinking, they can prod different people, they can bring people together. And also they can make those connections perhaps around new opportunities or even see new risks that you didn't see were there. And obviously taking you out of having to facilitate driving a strategy can help you too, because you're then in that conversation helping to build the strategy. So we really would recommend getting that outside in and taking an outside in approach to go beyond the predictable and get a much more effective strategy than your competitors. So that's the E of smarter. And Lucy, we're on to the last R.
I know, on to the last hour. And I think, Pippa, as you just rightly said in that example with organic at Sainsbury's, it's very hard to have a smart strategy when you're working in isolation. So when teams are working in isolation from each other, it's really hard to challenge each other on there. And actually, being cross-functionally collaborative is really important because it ensures buy-in from top to bottom and across all of the functions as well. Because whatever you decide in commercial or MPD or whichever area is going to impact every single function within your business at some point. So everyone will have a view on your strategy. And so by getting that collaborative buy-in really ensures that your strategy is really resilient to the future challenges that your business will face, and also from your competitors as well. And we've got Ian Garrett on the call, and actually, Ian, I'd love just for you to say a few words, if that's okay, because I think you've got some great examples of the experiences that you've had, where at Kerry Foods and at Pilgrims, of how your strategies have been more resilient where there's been a collaborative approach to building them.
I've got some great experiences. I'm not sure about the quality of the examples, but we'll definitely give it a whirl. So look, so as a quick qualifier, I've spent the lion's share of my career to date in the food manufacturing sector, working for some pretty big global companies across supply chain, commercial and leadership roles. So I've been involved in and led a number of strategy development projects, from category strategy through to overarching business strategy. So I've seen things go well and I've seen things go less well. So for me, one of the things you're always taught through any strategy training that you'll conduct is that the quality of your data inputs, insight, trend analysis, situational analysis at the initial stage is critical. And we heard a lot about that earlier from Sue and Lucy, but equally important in my experience is the diversity of thought, experience, functional expertise, and perspective of the people that you've involved in what you're trying to create. So from my experience, one of the things I've always been mindful of is ending up in a sort of strategy echo chamber during the development phase. So everybody in violent agreement with each other, moving through the strategy development phases almost too quickly and relying a little too heavily on intuition to get you through to the next phase. So I've seen this happen when the team is too small and or the characters and breadth of thinking are too similar. For me, your strategy is obviously only as good as the quality of your inputs and outputs, and crucially, the process and people contribution involved in its design. So I was perusing LinkedIn yesterday and I read a great comment which talked about the importance of building teams with cognitive and behavioral diversity. And the link to that for me in this context is that your ability to stress test your strategy development phases from a number of different angles and perspectives with a good cross-functional input really strengthens the direction you end up taking. As an example, a recent strategy I was involved in had a core steering group and then an extended cross-functional work group set up, who had a great breadth of cognitive and behavioral diversity, experiences, functional expertise, and all of them were involved in various stages of development. It was broadly a commercial strategy, but we involved everybody that it would touch, operations, everybody, because we needed that thinking, we needed that critical input. So the quality of output we received was really strong, and I stand over it as a piece of work that made a real difference to that business unit. So I think, Lucy, to probably broadly summarize, I think based on my experiences, I would say that really think about the cognitive and behavioral diversity of the team that you pull together as you go into your strategy development. Collaboration doesn't mean compliance. I think healthy friction is a really important part of the process and will help generate a more robust outcome. And also, collaboration doesn't mean one big committee-led process that doesn't have a coherent pace. I think clear ownership, and I talked earlier about the steering group, work stream group structure, and milestone timelines are really key, keeps everybody moving forward. And the conclusion for me was that a great team will stress test your strategy from different perspectives, and in turn will have a stronger buy-in due to their contribution by default. So this hopefully gives you a more well thought through plan with a greater implementation buy-in.
And that's great. Thank you, Ian. I mean, you've said it all really there. So thank you for that. And I think, that it absolutely hits the nail on the head, because a winning future-proof strategy has to come from that combined thinking of really diverse thinkers. So innovators, strategists, activators who really challenge each other. I think you're absolutely right. You know, if you all violently agree all the time, actually, what are you missing in that? And are you really challenging each other enough?
Yeah, sorry to jump in there, Lucy. I think sometimes be a bit suspicious where you've all agreed with each other vehemently and move forward. Okay, that might be a good thing. I'm not ruling it out as a good thing, but just be a little bit suspicious of it. Have a bit of a healthy paranoia about, have you all just agreed, have you missed something? Whatever you missed, what is the angle that you didn't take? What is the thing you should have thought of that you didn't? So
yeah, because if it's too obvious, your competitors are also going to be coming up with that very obvious solution as well.
Yeah.
And healthy friction is good. You know, I think sometimes we think of friction as a negative thing, but actually that healthy friction that is moving you on to the next stage and the next level of thinking is a great thing to have. And I think what's also really important about it is we talk about that diversity of skill set and thinkers, but also the diversity of teams means that everybody has skin in the game. Everybody has had the opportunity to voice their opinion, voice their thoughts. You've been able to think about actually the impact on the different areas across the business and how it's going to impact each area within the business. So there is real power in the collective thinking and collective approach. And I think what it allows you to do is then to put together your strategy so that you can really think about so what is the impact of this trend to our business, and what are we doing to action this plan as a business in the right way for our business that will give us competitive advantage in that. So Sue, I'm going to pass back over to you now.
Yeah, well, thanks, Lucy. Thanks everyone for taking the time. So that is our framework for success. We hope it's a smarter framework, something that you've been aware of with a few little tweaks to it. So I think we want to open up the chat now, Mark. Is that right? And just have a quick question with everyone around, you know, which areas of this framework do you think that you do well, and maybe which areas you don't do so well.
That's brilliant, Sue, because this is really just saying, so what? You know, we've listened and we've learned. So what for your business? What areas do you think you really need to focus on? And we'd love to see you share that in chat. What's really triggered for you, and what do you really want to focus on in that smarter framework in the journey? So we'd love to see that in chat. By way of my learning, I'm going to share my learning as well to help stimulate this. And if we started from a point of I'm buried in the now, to use your language, Sue, what I learned, and I've written it down to add clarity to my own learning, is you make next happen at the same time. So it's now and next, and you make it tangible with a multi-group team. And Ian built on that beautifully with this idea of saying that the diversity of thinking, behavior, and you know, cognitive is the thinking part. Make that team involved in that journey of now and next. The other big learning for me, and it really was learning, is around create for your business one framework. And smarter kind of helps you get there, but it's have one framework. And if you're going to do nothing else, work on the high impact trends. They are an act now perspective. So that's quite a lot of personal learning, frankly, for me as a business leader. So if you could use chat just to help us, and particularly Sue and Lucy as our facilitators today, what areas would you really, have really struck you as relevant to your business now? What would you focus on if you're going to embrace trends in the right way to help future-proof your business? So using chat, what would your focus areas be now? What are you intending to act upon? It's a lovely bit of real feedback about the so what. It could mean that everyone's typing frantically a really long answer. Yes, the timing is key. As an MD yourself, Pippa, you know that. It's absolutely right. I think it's start now as well for me. It's don't wait, you know, rather than say, well, when this pressure period is over, then we might give Sue and Lucy a call and say, help us with trends. I think it's act now. This point about there are certain things that your business can't afford to wait on.
Yeah,
So
and
act now.
any good strategy will be about that. There will be prioritization within it as well. So, you know, get on and do it firstly. Ensure you have prioritization within it so that you can take it in manageable chunks. You know, it's like the old adage, you know, how do you eat an elephant? You break it down into small little chunks that you can manage, and you base that prioritization on how much it's going to impact your business and how much it's going to deliver you, and break it down like that. And then if you have a strategic framework that is set, it can but also be flexible, which hopefully this will give you. You've got something which is fit for not just now but for the future as well.
Yeah, really smart. And so I'd like to come back to you actually and just say, what's your final top tip in summary? And I'll obviously come to Sue, but also to Lucy.
I think you've said it already, is do something. The worst thing you can do is stick your head in the sand and think, well, I'll just get on with what's happening right now. Because if you do that, everyone else around you is not going to be doing that, you hope, you know, for business sake. Others are going to be thinking about, okay, what is tomorrow? So I would definitely say do something now and act on it. The worst thing you can do is to spend time writing a brilliant strategy and put it away in a bottom drawer and never look at it again. We absolutely ensure that, you know, your strategy must have an action plan against it. And that's so top tip. Do it now and have an action plan to act is the top tip.
Thank you.
The key for us as well is actually it's that cross-functional working as well. It's pushing yourself beyond the predictable answers. You know, the whole point of having a future strategy is A, you can action it, and B, it's going to deliver you competitive advantage. So you have to push your thinking, and that comes from having the healthy friction from multiple thinkers is really important.
And Lucy, while you're on, I'm just going to put one item in chat I'd love you to pick up on, and it's from Sarah. I'm curious about how you see the opportunity to cross-fertilize trends, e.g. cost of living crisis and health. Cross-fertilize trends.
Well, and I think we do that all the time because I think trends don't necessarily stand in isolation, do they? So we live in a market that is continuously changing and evolving, and the market dynamics are changing. So we need to be able to respond to that. And I think this is, again, where, as Rosie was sort of signifying earlier, where you have a robust framework that is sent out. You know, the cost of living crisis may come in after you've got that framework, but if you understand where your opportunities are to grow and how you can remain agile and adapt to the changing market dynamics, it allows you to focus in the right areas rather than just going, right now we need to head in this direction and go off at a tangent. It allows you to stay very focused as a business on where you're going to win as a business, but respond to changing market dynamics as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And really, by closing, obviously, I'm going to say massive thank you to Lucy, also to Sue, also to Rosie, and also to Ian. It's one of the things I love about these 50-minute sessions, just over 50 minutes, because when you hear 4 different voices, 4 different perspectives on the same thing, it enriches. So a huge thank you for your time, energy, and expertise. You have fabulously produced a summary of what you've said, which we can share with everyone on the call. And this is the start. This is the first one of a series of future-proof your business. The next one's July the 11th. It's the same time, 1 o'clock UK time. And that one is about how do you future-proof your leadership style. So it builds beautifully on this embracing diversity of cognitive thinking and behavioral behaviors. So thank you very much again for being part of this, for leading it for us, and for everyone who joined. I hope we've inspired you to join again next time around. And a big thank you. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Brilliant
Thank you.
facilitator.